Hello viewers, this is Paladin of Odin, and this is some more Magic the Gathering Online. This is another episode of the Standard Commentary series, and it looks like we've got Izzet Control versus Golgari Aggro. Golgari had a glint sleeve siphoner, and Izzet used Collective Defiance to nuke it. Golgari just threw out a Gifted Aetherborn. Izzet plays Storm Chaser Mage and Fiery Temper to kill off the Gifted Aetherborn, allowing him to attack in for 2. Storm Chaser Mage, I haven't seen him in quite a while, but it doesn't change the fact that, he's not a bad card. And especially in a deck like this, where you are playing burn spells, and most likely he's got counter spells, it's just they haven't come down yet. He's gonna get benefit from your deck the way it's built. So, a 1/3 Flying Haste for 2, not bad at all. Extra benefit from you nuking their creatures and, doming them in the face or countering their spells. He's not a bad creature in this deck. He's still got a little bit of life left in him in Standard. The Winding Constrictor. Ooh, Bedlam Reveler. Yeah, Bedlam Reveler, he's a really nice guy to have when you're almost out of cards. And discarded a Collective Defiance, but, he had, 4 in there, so it cost him 4 to play. So a 4-drop, 3/4 prowess that basically made him discard a single card and drew him 3. But, one of the downsides of this kind of a deck is when you are low on cards, you are in some trouble. Or at least the way this guy's deck looks, because so far we haven't seen any counter spells. It's all been burn spells. And, that just fits into the old, mono-red aggro kind of deck. You have your fast aggressive creatures, you have your burn spells. When you run out, you die. Each player draws and discards a card. Gaia Reach Sanitarium. Discards an Evolving Wilds, discards Dead Weight. And he's attacking all in. Blocks with the Gifted Aetherborn on the Bedlam Reveler. So gets through for 1, but he kills off the Reveler, which at this point, trading your creature for theirs is actually a pretty good deal because your opponent is on much less cards than you. You have the advantage right now. Ooh, Soul Swallower Worm. Soul Swallower. It is a worm. 3/3 Trample, and if you have Delirium at the beginning of your upkeep, put 3+1/+1 counters on him. For 4 mana, a 3/3 Trample isn't a bad deal, but then the added benefit of the Delirium making it a 6/6, and then a 9/9, and then so on, especially against a deck that has to counter or bounce it to get rid of it, unless they kill it now. As a 3/3, there are plenty of options. He's got Fiery Temper, he's got Harness Lightning, Lightning Axe. There's a lot of options for him to kill Soul Swallower now. But when it becomes a 6/6, not so much, or more thanks to the Winding Constrictor. So attacking all in with the Wandering Fumarole flips it over to a 4/1 Thermo Alchemist. Oh, is it Machine Gun deck? I mean, it would have been a little more apparent if the Alchemist had come out sooner, but, that's just the way things are sometimes. So, 7/7 Trample. His opponent has 1 card in hand. Gifted Aetherborn. So, he has, a creature to either block or attack with, depending on what his opponent does. The lifelink will give him extra, just that extra life gain is enough to turn things around against a deck like this. And another Soul Swallower. Another Storm Chaser Mage. Okay, Thermal Alchemist for 1. Attacking all in with the flyers. And Shock to the Face for 2, which will buff both of the Storm Chaser Mages up to a total of 4 damage. Untap the Thermal Alchemist so he can deal an extra damage. So this is lethal. He got really lucky there that he had that Shock and Thermal Alchemist come down when they did. And, you know, theoretically, all he really would have had to do is block the Wandering Fumarole with the Winding Constrictor. I mean, granted, you want to keep the Winding Constrictor because of the synergy with the +1/+1 counters, but, you know, in that particular situation, when he was at, he would have lost 4 life from Wandering Fumarole, whereas if he had chump blocked, he wouldn't, and he would have been at 8, and his opponent would not have been able to kill him right there. But, you know, it's kind of a hard decision on occasion whether you want to give up, you know, one of your really good creatures in a situation like that, because you can't really read the Izzet deck very well in that situation, because, I mean, you know that theoretically he could have a burn spell or, you know, something that could put him over the top. But when he's on that low of cards, most likely he's having to top deck it, which is in your favor, but, you know, you just never know. So that one was actually incredibly close, because all it would have taken was for him to brick on one of those cards. You know, Shock or Thermal Alchemist, and he would not have won that game. But, you know, I was always a fan of Soul Swallower. You know, you didn't see it very much in Golgari Aggro back when it was, you know, a straight Delirium deck, which, you know, I was a little surprised at. You know, I would have at least run 1 or 2 copies, you know, on the high end, because, you know, a 4-drop with Delirium with that kind of, you know, with that kind of power potential, or at the very least, he's a 4-drop that your opponent really has to kill, which, you know, means that you're keeping the bullseye on something other than the rest of your creatures. But, you know, he's not a bad creature, especially against a deck like Izzet, because Izzet, you know, Lightning Axe is probably their top damage dealer when dealing with creatures. You know, deals with a Gifted Aetherborn very easily, 5 damage versus 3 toughness. You know, 5 damage is, you know, enough to deal with a lot of different creatures, but, you know, when the Soul Swallower is a 3/3, you don't necessarily need something that big, which means there are a lot more options. But then when it gets to a 6, Lightning Axe isn't enough. You know, you either have to use 2 spells or do the Lightning Axe on a combat damage to be able to combine and kill it. And then, you know, if it doesn't die then, it just keeps getting worse and worse to the point where you can't kill it. And you have to rely on your blue to possibly bounce it. Or, what's that enchantment that turns it into a colorless land? Is it called Trapped in the Moon? I think, you know, that would be a very good spell to deal with a creature like that, given the way Izzet decks are built. Because if you don't counter it, it's going to get in play. If you don't have the burn or the bounce to deal with it immediately, it's going to get bigger, meaning that burn is useless. And then if you don't get a bounce spell, it's going to get bigger, and going to get bigger. And something like Trapped in the Moon is going to deal with this guy, just boom, 3 mana, he's done. And you don't have to worry about it. There's a Storm Chaser. You know, Glimmer of Genius is a pretty good card in this matchup because, you know, he needs to keep drawing cards, extra cards, refilling his hand so that he has more ammo to burn. Ooh, Grasp of Darkness in response. Fiery Temper kills off the Soul Swallower, so, you know, both these guys are even now. Same hand size, no board presence. Sylvan Advocate from Golgari. And mans up the Hissing Quagmire, because at the moment, why not? You know, his opponent is completely tapped out. Sylvan Advocate makes him a 6/6 or a 4/4, excuse me. So you get him for 4 for free. Advocate's currently a 4/5, so, you know, based on what Izzet can do, he pretty much needs a Lightning Axe or 2 burn spells to be able to handle him right now. And the big problem right now is the fact that 4/5 Vigilance, he can make a 4/4 Death Touch, so he's got a potential for 8 damage every combat phase. But Izzet isn't out of this quite yet because he does have a lot of mana open right now and 4 cards in hand. Okay, so he is manning up the Quagmire. And going all in. What has Izzet got in response? He does have the Wandering Fumarole. He could... Oh, Lightning Axe on the Sylvan Advocate, discarding a mountain. Knocks the Quagmire down to a 2/2. And then Shock on Hissing Quagmire. So, totally wipes the board. Golgari plays a Gifted Aetherborn second main phase. But Izzet is almost out of ammo at this point. Thermal Alchemist. You know, against almost any other 2-power creature, Thermal Alchemist would be really helpful right here. But because Aetherborn has Death Touch... Ooh. Collective Defiance. 4 damage to the creature, 3 to the face. So he clears the way. Doesn't let him get that lifelink help, but Izzet is out of cards. He is top decking. So now is when Golgari has his chance to build his board and, you know, get out in front of Izzet. Vessel of Nascency pops it. Finds a Nascency, Aether Hub, Rogue Refiner, and an Evolving Wilds. Okay, over to Izzet, who mans up the Wandering Fumarole. The only problem with Fumarole at this point is the fact that this is Golgari. He could have Grasp of Darkness, he could have Fatal Push, or he could have none of those things and takes 4 damage. And tapping the Thermal Alchemist to do 1 more damage takes Golgari down to 10. Pulse of Marasa. Haven't seen that in quite a while. But against a deck like this, you know, life gain is actually incredibly powerful. You know, he was at 10. Now he's up at 16 when his opponent is top decking. That is brutal. And Sylvan Advocate. And Winding Constrictor. And things are looking real bad for Izzet here. You know, now would be a pretty good time to have a Bedlam Reveler just so that he can, you know, try and draw some answers here. Or, you know, a Glimmer of Genius, or, you know, whatever other draw spells he's using. But, he doesn't play anything. Goes back to Golgari, who throws down Altered Ego. Can't be countered. 2+1/+1 counter, so that'll be 3 with the Winding Constrictor. And what's he going to copy? Advocate? Advocate. So now he's got a 7/8 Advocate. I was thinking, he might have gone for the Winding Constrictor if, he had another creature in his hand that does +1/+1 counters, say Verdurous Gearhulk. But, if he didn't have anything like that in hand, the Advocate was a good choice because, that's a 7/8 Vigilance. So Thermal Alchemist does 1 damage, and he draws his card and concedes. And as you guys well know, with decks like these, when you run out of ammo, when you run out of answers, you are dead. Because your opponent is just going to keep getting to build his board, and you're just sitting there, hoping for a card. And, I know that this isn't the typical Izzet control deck, but it is a little, it is similar. It's just, this guy's deck is much more aggressive. We've seen the Izzet machine gun decks in the past, but, this one's a little bit faster, so theoretically, I think it has a better chance against other aggro decks like this, except for the fact that it doesn't look like this guy has a set of Fatal Pushes in his deck. But, you know what? I'm going to end the video here. I'm sorry that this isn't the typical Izzet control deck, but it's what we've had, and that was actually a pretty good match. I'm actually surprised at, how an older deck can hold up against, one of the top 3 decks in Standard right now. But, again, I'm going to end it here. I've babbled on for far too long, so that was Izzet Control Machine Gun versus Golgari Aggro. And if you liked what you saw, hit that like and subscribe button for me, and I will see you in the next video.